Hello everybody and welcome to this week's webinar. This week's webinar is Body Language and Communication in the Workplace, and I'm joined by Heather Mahoney. I hope you all had a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year also. Just getting back into the swing of things here. I shall only do a very brief intro. I ran through things with Heather this morning and I'm really excited for everybody to hear this live class and to see it. I think there's some really fantastic stuff in it. And I'm very excited for Heather to begin. Heather is in South Florida. She is a very, very distinguished guest, and I think I'll let her introduce herself to the extent that she wants to. Thanks very much, guys.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Morning, Heather. An afternoon from England.
Good afternoon. Well, it's now afternoon. No, it's still morning here. I've had a really great day, but let me ask the question of everyone and think about it for a second. Who remembers seeing the movie The Devil Wears Prada? And if you remember the movie, Meryl Streep gave, I believe it was an Oscar-winning performance. And what you remember most is not necessarily the lines that she spoke during the movie, but you remember her body language. And that's what we're going to talk about today, body language and communication in the workplace. So I'm excited, so let's get started. Okay, when we think about body language, it's there to enhance, and it can enhance anyone's career. It is a form of communication just like language, and I'm going to show you how it can relate to language. But this form of communication, whether in management, sales, understanding body language and what your own body is saying is key to how we communicate daily. We're going to focus on 5 things today, and by the end of this webinar, I'm going to define for you body language, that you understand the benefit and the purpose of interpreting body language. You learn to interpret basic body language of your own and understand your own body language and what its communication. And just like how we speak every day, we're going to show you how to practice using body language as a skill. When we communicate body language, it's the unspoken communication that makes up more than half of our communication daily. There's an old quote that says that body language is 7% verbal communication, 38% the tone of your voice, and 55% of what we see and do is what we communicate with our body language. So it takes up a majority of what we communicate each day. Okay. When you learn a new language, some may speak French or German or Italian or even English, but when we learn a new language, we set goals. So we make sure those goals are realistic and specific. We devote some time to learning, so we schedule some time to practice. We usually practice daily to hone those skills. And most of all, guess what? We're no longer in school, so we can really enjoy the process. There's no homework here. Isn't that pretty good? I'm not going to give you any homework? Absolutely. Now, the power of your body language. It is honest. It creates self-awareness. It understands feelings. And it enhances our listening and communications. And do I have any participant that wear glasses? Think about it for a second. When you remove your glasses or contact for that matter, do you find yourself squinting to see and that you didn't hear what the conversation was, but you're interpreting what the person is saying based on his or her body language? That's right. Yes, we do. it enhances our listening skills in body language because we can interpret more than we actually hear. More than words, body language deals with the proximity, the positioning of our body, our facial expression, because the eyes really notice everything, our touch, and the rate of our respiration. That's all part of your body language. Action speaks louder than word. Do you remember Mom saying that? Your action speaks louder than word. It talks about deception, confidence, boredom, being open, being closed off, your attraction, and your emotions. Those all come from our nonverbal communication that we communicate daily to everyone around us. Now let's look at reading body language. Actively reading body language, however, will provide valuable insight and improve our communication. So pay attention to the position and movement of the people around you, specifically their head, their physical gestures, and really most important, what the eyes are doing. The eyes speak volume, and if we see the eyes, or if you play sports, like maybe tennis or golf, you'll improve your shot or your accuracy based on how you position your head and how you look at the ball in alignment. So do the same things when we speak to someone else. Our head position. How many of you right now are not in yes? Moving your head up and down or side to side? It all depends, and you're signaling communication because you don't have to speak for the person to interpret what it is that you're saying when you do any of those things. How about handshake? You know, shaking your head indicates disagreement, tilting it down signals disapproval. Your chin up indicates confidence. I have confidence about this presentation, don't you think? And translating gestures into words. Thumb up, that's okay. Universal, even when we put our index finger to our thumb, it's okay. And that signals everybody knows that's okay if you're in agreement with something that the other person is saying to you, or your boss or your coworker. Got it, I understand, and you give the okay signal. Now, if I'm moving too fast, don't worry. There's a surprise for you at the end, and we're going to get you some little tips that you can use to improve your body language. And as always, you can always come back and listen to this presentation anytime if you miss something. Okay, open and close of the body. Arms crossed. This stance is about being defensive or hostile. I remember I was speaking to a colleague once, and I had my arms crossed. And as I was listening to him, you know, my body language was saying, I'm not really agreeing with what you were saying. And I didn't really recognize that's what was happening, but he said, Heather, you're not agreeing with me. And I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, yeah, your arms are crossed. You were just being defensive. And ever since that moment, I have always been conscious of how I put my body, what position it is in when I'm speaking to someone. How many of you have ever been on an interview? Like, my background is human resources, organizational management. Have you ever been in an interview and you thought the interview was going absolutely fabulously well, and then you never got a call back? You know, think about it for a moment. What was the body saying? Because when you go for an actual live interview, guess what? You have two interviews going on simultaneously. You have the verbal communication that you are speaking with the other person, and then you have the body language interview. And they are paying really close attention to the body language. So you have to be conscious of your body language, especially when you're in interview or meetings. The eyes have it. You look through the windows of the world through your eyes, and they speak volume in how we communicate to others. So if you're looking to the left, it could mean that someone is remembering something. How many of you do public speaking and you lose your train of thought? What do you naturally do? You look upwards to the ceiling or down to the floor, right? Exactly. Because that's what the eyes are saying. You're searching for something when you're doing that. So, and if you're surprised or interested, your eyes naturally become wide and alert because you want to take everything in. You don't want to miss a single screenshot of what's going on. Okay, let's talk about some mistakes that the body does when it communicates. This is why it's important to examine the position and gestures as a whole when attempting to interpret your body language. Or to prevent body language mistake, become, as I said, aware of the factors and think carefully that you are in alignment with the words that you are speaking and what the body is doing. Well, what about if you were injured or you're cold or you're ill? You know, the body, you can't really control what's going on with the body at those particular times or what it does. So you have to take that into consideration, that that person can't control the movement of his or her body. Now, this is really important. When you ever gone out or you're standing in the queue or the line and the person behind you come up really close to you, you don't know that person. What do you feel? Automatically it's like they're too close and you move away. You step to the side a little bit to give them a little space. That's because they've now invaded that zone of that 12 feet. They need to stay back a little bit because you don't know them. However, if they were your mate, your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, guess what? It's okay for them to be that close to you. So having that space adjustment or personal space is really important. And also important in the workplace when you're speaking to your colleagues. Some of them don't want you that close to them to communicate what it is. So this is a really important tip for you to write down as to how many inches that you should stay away from someone that you know or may not know in terms of body language and how you speak. And remember, again, 55% of what we speak every day does not come from our verbal communication, only 7%. So if I'm just going to go back for a moment on that slide, is like you have to really be conscious of those personal space and what it communicates to you. Now, there are reasons why we make quick movements. Stress, you're ill, you're exhausted. I'm in South Florida, and today the temperature is in the low 80s. And believe it or not, I'm always cold. And I will wear a wool coat in the house when it's 80 degrees because I'm freezing. How about you? Do you do any of those things to make sure that you're not making quick, sudden movements? How about fidget? My mom always talked about stop fidgeting so much. But sometimes there are reasons, again, medically, as to why you're fidgeting, or the body is making movements or communicating things that other people might find distracting. And if you've done public speaking, a lot of the times they tell you to watch what it is that you say, how you say it, or not to make sudden or unconscious movement because people are looking at you when you speak and they find the movement distracting. So when you speak, you have to be as still as possible. Now, I'm not sure how many of us on this webinar today are male or female. However, the male and the female communicate differently on the same topic. And in order to prevent these miscommunications, it is important to understand the signal that are common to most people, as well as the signal that are common for males and for females. So let's look at some of those signals. Men and women share the universal facial expression, but some are different, of course. Women, yay for the women, we frequently smile to be polite or to fulfill cultural expectations. The meaning behind these smiles are often misinterpreted. Men, no disrespect here. Okay, men are generally take more space than a woman, and they employ larger personal distances. Women tend to employ smaller personal space, and then they tend to increase that personal distance with strange men. Again, remember that you're standing in a grocery line and somebody comes up behind you, you tend to want to move away. That's because you want that distance to be larger versus a man and say, I'm okay with that. The female body language. We talk about smile, eye contact, the position and posture, leaning. Women will lean forward when they're interested in something or someone. Our legs and feet apart sometimes are typically pointed in the direction of a woman's interest. This includes those romantic moments, women. Or touch, and women are likely to touch each other more often than men. Women, you know, two of you go to movies. You know, it's okay if you hold hands for a moment or something. There's nothing wrong with that. Men, no, that's not going to happen. Now let's look at some of the male. They're more likely to fidget than women, of course, but it's not necessarily a sign of insecurity or boredom. It's just the way they use their energy. Or the eye contact. Well, men will make eye contact, but the eye contact can be seen as dominating or maybe hostile a little bit, and if it lasts too long. Or the stance. They choose stances that are wide. You know, they stand. Look at how a male character in a movie or TV show, how they stand where their feet apart. It's usually maybe 9 to 12 inches apart, whereas a woman, it may be like 6 inches. It's not that wide. And now that I am telling you about this, when you go through your day, you'll notice these differences or these communication stances that are going on with the body on a daily basis. Our nonverbal communication, again, it speaks more loudly than our verbal communication. But while interpreting body languages, it is important, it is equally important to understand what your nonverbal communication is telling others. It takes more than words to persuade others. You have to lean your body into it and speak about it. So let's look at some of these for a moment. And here's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know, what you do speaks so loud that I cannot hear what it is that you are saying. Think about that for a moment. Here's some common gestures. Have any of you ever bit your nails? Did you bite your nails because you were confident, or you bit your nails because you were nervous? How about pulling your ears if you're not sure about making a decision on something? How about drumming your fingers because you're impatient? You're waiting too long, right? We do these. And you didn't have to speak for me to understood what it is that you were trying to say just by what you were doing with your body. How about the signal you send to others? You know, body language, the voice, your appearance, your hygiene. You know, I'm not going to pick on that person in school, but do you remember that person that's like, oh, I don't want to be around that person, they kind of smell? Or if you're walking down the street and somebody who may not have, taken a bath or a shower that day, what happens? What do you do? Do you want to get close to them and hug them, or do you want to move away to the other side? That's body language and how that signal communicates to others. And none of us want to be in any of these circumstances at any time, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You could take one sentence and repeat it 3 different ways and have an emphasis on the same exact word, and it translates something completely different even though the words are the exact same. It's the pitch of your voice and what it is that you say, and the speed in which you speak, the loudness of how you spoke, and the tone in which you convey your emotion that you are communicating. So if you take all these 4 factors into consideration, when you say the same sentence over and over, it conveys different meaning to different people. What does your posture say? Are you hunched over and close your body and can signal unhappiness or insecurity? Or you could have a correct posture and stand up straight. Sit up straight because you want to portray good habits and maintain the natural curve of your spine. It also helps in alleviate back pains. Or you want to relax and not be forced or stiff with someone to straighten your posture, look forward, and feel relaxed. How about the facial expressions we make? Our faces express our worlds. We all interpret facial expression based on what we see, culturally, universally, or just by how we feel that day. If we're not feeling well, we're sick, we're happy, we're excited, all those emotions and feelings are expressed in our faces. We link our communication with emotion. Because of the emotional connection, it is not easy to continually fake our facial expressions, right? If we're not feeling well, it comes out as being, our face shows pain. If we're not excited about something, we're not smiling. If we're angry or upset, our lips, our mouths may be curved and really tight. Those are all shown in our faces. So therefore, you want to be conscious again, and I can't repeat it enough, how conscious we are of the facial expressions that we make and the communications that we convey to others. Microexpression. These are brief involuntary expressions that betray our emotions and typically last about 1/25 of a second. And that's always the thing, what Freud will say, you behave and you act as you really feel, and you don't really think it, but it goes like a snap of a finger. I could snap my finger, and that emotion, it's like, example, you get a surprise. Somebody tells you something, and quickly your expression goes from one situation to another based on that quick interaction of what that surprise was. Good, bad, it shows in the face as quickly. Our facts, I call it facts, facial action coding system, where the muscles that relax and contract with emotion are identified to show the feeling behind each movement of the face. Way too technical. So let's just jump over that because we don't want to be technical in our body language communications, do we? Here's some universal expressions that we should consider as we talk about our communications day to day. Our sadness, our surprise, and look what, again, everything that we communicate, or most of the things that we communicate, it really is above the neck. Think about it. Our mouth, our eyebrows, the front of our face, all of this happens through our face. And that's why we communicate 55% of what we say is based on what we see, not necessarily what we hear. How about in business? Because body language in business can provide people with business that is a key. How about that salesperson who's really fabulous at reading another person's mood or tone and whether it's okay to go in to close the deal or just wait a minute? Those people are exceptional at reading body language, and you can be too. The difference between where I am in being a specialist or an expert in body language is that I practice it every single day. And practice is what makes it ideal and perfect, because the more I practice, the better I get. And the more you practice, the better you'll get too in being conscious of what the body language is saying, what it is that you are interpreting, or what you want it to say to others. Communication is power, whether it's the stance, the position, the walk, the handshake. Now, be honest. How many of us really love those limp fish, finger-touching handshake, or those wet litter handshake where the palm is sweating? Do you really like those handshakes? No, we don't. We like a firm grip in our handshake, and that's the very first contact in communications generally is the handshake. And if the handshake is weak, you wouldn't necessarily want to have a good impression of that person. Last week I was at a workshop, and there was a retired American football player, about 6'5", 275, and he gave me a handshake. It was, now I have a 12-year-old who weighs 80 pounds. He gave me a better handshake than this 6'5", 275 pounds gentleman. It was such a weak handshake. I will remember I had to go up to him and say, that was not a real good handshake. And you know what he said to me? But you're a woman. I can't give a woman a strong handshake. Really? Think about it. You wouldn't do that to your best person that you want to make a great impression with, would you? Absolutely not. Give a firm handshake every single day. Stance. Again, men, wider stance, women, smaller stance. Doesn't mean that they don't emanate power or confidence. It's just how we communicate. Culturally, there's difference. The eye contact, the hand gestures, the head. And I'm repeating these because they are so important that they are worth repeating based on culture, based on thoughts or beliefs or sex, because they show up every single day in our daily communication. You know, do you remember a few years ago when George Bush was president and he was, I don't remember, I think he was in Saudi Arabia, and one of the participants in the audience was upset with him and he took his shoe off and threw it at him. That was body language because that communicated so much. It was a physical action, but the interpretation of the shoe represented volumes in the upset and thought process of the differences. Building trust. Smile. If you're in sales, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to build trust. And how you build trust is to be open with the person next to you. And how do you present being open? You smile. Your eyes smile. Your tone and your voice inflection changes. Did you notice that you were doing that as you become aware and you open the conversation and you make that contact to build a relationship with the person? It absolutely changes. What about if it's somebody that you didn't necessarily want to get to know in that way? Your whole inflection changes, your body changes, your position changes, how the barriers you put up changes. All unconscious movements that we're making with our body in communication but we're not verbally saying that, I don't really trust you as a salesperson selling me this copier or printer. I have doubts. I have questions. This is what your body is saying. When we mirror things, we smile when the client does. James told me he was 6'5", and he tends to hunch his body over a little bit. I'm 5'1". I tend to stand up and, point my chin up so I could appear to be taller when I communicate with somebody who's a different height than I am. How about you? What do you do? How about just by looking at the person, and you can tell that they're not telling you the truth, right? Absolutely, because you've practiced and you're an expert at this, and you know what the body language is of the other person is saying. Are you conscious of your body language? Because based on a number of factors, including stress and insecurity, will cause suspicious body language. And when there are multiple indicators of deceptions in a person's body language, however, further investigation may be warranted. And that's what we do. We don't have to say it, but we see it, we know it, and we put our guards up based on these factors. How about the hands? When you watch the hands of a person, if they're speaking, they're touching themselves all the time, or their nose to mouth, often to hide a lie. It's like, okay, they're not telling me the truth. Are the palms being open, natural part of communication? Think about it. What factors do you do? What characteristics show how you communicate with your hands or your body language? A forced smile, licking your lips, a tight closed mouth. Natural things that we do or unconscious things that we do that the other person is interpreting in our movements or in our daily communications. Eye contact. Again, windows of the world comes through your eyes. It is seen. How we gaze, the extent to which we look at someone, the glances that we make, the unmovement of our eyes, the look to the left, to the right, up, down, sideways. It all speaks volume. And we communicate each time we make those movements with our eyes to the other person. And they could be across the room and know exactly what you are trying to say without you verbalizing it. Changes in posture and the movements do not correspond. This is the key to mastering an interview, the key to a successful meeting, the key to building a relationship with that person that you want to have a physical or business relationship with, is the voice and the movement do not correspond, or they do correspond. And this is the money shot. If nothing else that you take away today is to be conscious of what the body is saying and what the voice says. They need to be in alignment and they need to be consistent, because the moment they're inconsistent, that's when conflict arises. Now we've talked about little things that may have been distracting, but let's talk about things that we can do to improve our body language. Again, be aware of your movements, relax, watch your hands, what they're doing, the eye contact, smile, the movement of your head, the way you stand, the way you sit. These are all positive things that we can do that make our body language more consistent, make our communications more clear and specific in what we do is to be aware of the movements or conscious what we are trying to communicate with our bodies. We build power and confidence in our body language when we exercise, how we dress, how we speak, and the posture of our bodies. An open body will induce confidence. It will also improve the way others see you. How we dress may affect our confidence and improve our self-esteem. Our posture automatically increases confidence and alertness, so avoid slouching or remaining calm. Did you know, again, I told you that my background is human resources and I did a lot of recruiting, interviews, and the like. And when I coach others on interview, did you know your voice change when you stand and have a communication with others versus when you are sitting down? When you smile, the tone of your voice and your voice inflection changes versus when you are serious. Try that. I guarantee you'll notice there's a difference. Because can you tell at this moment I'm smiling and now I'm not? See how my voice changed? And you didn't have to physically look at me to see that, just by the position and the posture of what I'm doing with my body. How about practicing in the mirror? They say that all the time if you give public speeches, but note the posture. Pay attention to your tendency to slouch or hunch over. Practice standing tall and being erect. Notice the gestures you make with your hands when you are nervous. Practice speaking in a tone that matches the gestures of your body language. Now the key is instilling and matching body language to the spoken words. Movements will confirm or contradict what is said. Gestures will easily match what is said if the words reflect genuine feeling. Emotional awareness is necessary to communicate exactly what you mean. Unresolved emotion can affect your body language. Again, let me just say that. Unresolved emotions can and will affect your body language. If you are not being honest with yourself, I guarantee that upset will show up in how you communicate to that person with your body language. Now, some involuntary movement, stress, and finding healthy ways to express emotion will help limit involuntary movements. And the way to reduce stress is exercise. I'm up every morning at 5:30 to run 6 miles every morning. Sometimes I don't want to, but I do. Meditation, getting sufficient sleep, journaling, and a healthy diet. These are things that we can do that affects how we communicate, how our body communicates with others, and let us be conscious that we're communicating with others and getting sleep and not being tired. Say what you mean. Be specific. Stick to the facts when you are communicating. Do not rely on your emotions. Because what is it that gets us in trouble when we communicate with our body language? Our unconscious communication of our emotions. Right? Our unconscious communication of emotion is what causes conflict, and because we're trying to communicate something that doesn't match what the body is saying. Our self-edit. Choose language that is not confrontational. We try to do this as much as we can, but let's choose the language that doesn't present or causes conflict. Have a goal. Know what it is that you want to communicate and do not ramble. And that goes back to being specific. When you are clear to the point, you get your point across, you communicate it clearly, the body matches what it is that you are saying, and that's your goal. We all want to communicate clearly, but what gets us in trouble is that we are not specific when we communicate clearly, right? Action speaks louder than word. Practice your body language skills and decode the body language of others. What people decide: intelligence, trustworthiness, likability, and decision to buy. That's what they're trying to ascertain from our body language. Although this workshop may be coming to an end, our journey about body language is just the beginning. Take a moment, review and update your action plan. Harvard University here did a study, and I love using this as an example, but here's the study that they wrote. They did a study with their high potential MBA graduates, 1,000 of them, and they followed them for 10 years. And what they found was this. They asked them, and I ask you, how many of us have goals? And most of us rose our hand that we have a goal, and you have a goal, right? The next question they asked of the 1,000, how many of the 1,000 wrote their goals down? A little bit less than 1,000 said they wrote their goals down. It's like, okay, so here's the study and the results of the study. Over the next 10 years, they followed them. And they found that, yes, they all had goals and they all achieved very high potential in their goals. But 96% of the individuals who wrote their goals down achieved it. And not only did they achieve it, they doubled what the others did not when they didn't write their goals down. So when we update our goals and we look at them consistently and we practice what it is that we want, we're more than 96% likely to achieve what we set out to do. And it's the key tool to how I and you can achieve any success that you want, because we don't always achieve our goals, but when we raise our standards of communicating and being conscious that we communicate effectively, we match our body to the verbal communication, we will communicate clearly, we will have less conflict, and people understand what it is that we want to say. How about that? Will that work for you? Now we have some time left over. Do we have any questions about what we may have gone through over this last 45, 46 minutes?
Yeah, I also thought it would kind of be useful for anybody if they have, say for example, an issue that they've had at work in terms of not being able to read somebody else, or they're concerned about how they're being read. Maybe just if they needed a helping hand or any advice on that, then they could also mention it and we could see if Heather has any advice for you. I mean, I shall read out those questions as and when they come. It's quite intimate today, so hopefully we should have a few people asking questions. I really enjoyed it. The one thing I was wondering, which we didn't go into in the presentation, was about the facts. Just since we have a little bit of time left, I thought it might be interesting just to have a couple of minutes just looking at the facts slide again. I know it's a little bit technical, but
The facts?
yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, hold on. Tell me when to stop. Let me go back.
Great, no problem. Incidentally, Larry, I shall get this presentation emailed out with a link as soon as I edit it and upload it, so it should be hopefully by the weekend.
Okay. Okay. Is it this one? Nope.
I think it might be the next one. I'm not sure. No, it was... It was the thing about the muscles and whatnot, the more slightly scientific. But yeah, regardless, while you're looking for that, I must say thank you very, very much. It's been really eye-opening for me, if you can excuse the pun after all the information about what we do with our eyes. I thought it was excellent. There's some really, really great stuff here. Hopefully my boss isn't listening in so that I can go back to him and really wow him with my body language.
You know, the key to body language is just a consciousness, or your willingness to be conscious of what it is that you are actually saying unintentionally.
Yeah.
With our bodies as we speak to others.
Yeah.
And generally is that we don't want to appear that we're being rude, so therefore when we are speaking to others we look away.
Right.
And you know, how many of us that remain on the line have kids? And if you have a child, you know, like I said, mine is 12, and you're speaking to him or her and asking them for something, and they're busy watching cartoons or playing on their video game, and your natural inclination is to say to them, are you listening to me? Because they're not looking at you, and that's what you want that person to whom you are speaking with to look at you and to acknowledge that they are hearing you, and they don't have to look at you. So that one always gets to me. It's like, oh my goodness, I do this all the time with my son. I ask him constantly, are you listening to me? Because if you're not looking at me, please look at me. Then I know you're listening to me.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I have a stepbrother who constantly gets it from his mum. Stop looking at your phone and talk to me, and you know. So just a quick couple of questions actually. So Nita was wondering how she can overcome a negative body movement towards positive body language with somebody she may not be enjoying at work, or somebody whose company she may not be enjoying.
The best way to do that is to be in integrity with yourself. And for example, the moment you now recognize that I may not overly like this person or being around this person, that goes away. It's when you try to force it and try to pretend, that's when that body language is saying, you know, that heavy sigh happens.
Yeah.
So what you can do is say, okay, I am not 100% in favor of this person, but I can be respectful, I can be kind, I can be conscious, and that's what you're communicating and being in integrity.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people worry about having a responsibility to do more than they need to. I think that as long as you are polite and respectful, that comes a lot more easily than pretending to like somebody who you don't, and really trying too hard on that front. Nicholas also asked, he is in an open plan setting. Sorry, in fact, before I say that, Melissa said that she's left-handed and doesn't want people to think she's lying when her eyes are looking to the right. I'm not sure that it works that way, but I'm not sure if you can confirm that, Heather.
When you're looking to the right or to the left, it just generally means that you are thinking of what to say to be correct.
Yeah. I think it was
in that sense.
I think it was that looking to the left can suggest that you're maybe not being fully truthful. I think it said in the slide, but I don't think that it works.
Yeah.
The opposite way for left-handed people.
But again, the biggest thing is to be, when you are conscious, when you are physically aware of that, here's an example. I had a coaching session after you and I spoke this morning with a client. And her point was, I need to make my boss understand. And so when we peel back the onion on that, I said, first of all, think about it. Can you make that person understand? No. And what was really going on with her, what she was really upset about, was that she was training someone that she thought was invading her space.
Right.
And she didn't like that. So it came off as being, I'm a little bit hostile, unfriendly towards this person. And when she says, oh my goodness, I have to be conscious and be aware of that, it's like the anger in her voice went away.
Right, yeah.
And it's the same thing. When we can be honest with ourselves and say, here's the feeling I'm having towards this situation or this issue, then the body becomes aligned with it, because you're no longer trying to deceive the body into believing or acting a certain way. The body is going to act however the mind tells it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of an innate reaction. So if you try and fool the body, I guess it's not as easy as saying things differently. Acting and saying things are totally different things, aren't they? Exactly.
So when you're truthful with it, it's going to come across. And now look at most people on their LinkedIn profile. Most of them have their hands crossed against their chest, and it does not come across as that they're being protective. It comes across as that they're being strong.
Yeah.
Same pose, but it's just how the way they're feeling about it and the way they're portraying it to the world, it comes across as confident. Whereas if they're unsure about it, the eyes would say something differently. The body would say, no, that's a protective stand. And you could see two people stand next to each other in a mirror, and one is protective and one is confident with the same exact stand based on what that person is feeling on their inside. That's what I'm saying. The more truthful you can be with yourself, the easier it is for the body language to communicate what your intentions are.
Great. So Nicholas, who I began with just recently, moved. His question was, he's in an open plan setting in an office. Oftentimes he'd talk to his boss, and his boss would focus on his laptop or mid-sentence be distracted by somebody else and start speaking to them. And he wants to know how he can get them to focus on him when he's when he's trying to converse with them or whatever else, because he finds it quite disrespectful.
A couple of things what he could do. One is to, basic is to move the setting of the surrounding. And two, ask his boss, is there a convenient time that you and I could speak about certain things? It may be that the topic may not be of interest to him, and then he's wandering over here, or he just have that natural inclination that he can't pay attention or focus on one or two things at that time. So it becomes a distracting, let me look what's going on over here. So try to move the surrounding and see if that works.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks. Ridian was just asking, what's the best way to sit in a group meeting when you're all sitting around a desk? He tends to have a pen in his hands even when he's not writing, as it feels very awkward sitting still.
What I've always done when I'm sitting in a group meeting and it's a little bit awkward, it's not your turn to speak. It's one, you could take notes. Sometimes you're doodling, because, if you're in a general meeting and the finance person is speaking and the facilities person and you're in IT, or the IT person is speaking and I have no clue to what they're talking about. One is that I could get clear on the points that I want to make. That's one. Two is to think about, what interesting thing that they may be saying that can help me to, one, either connect to them or to connect with what I want to achieve in my particular role or responsibility.
Great. I mean, personally, Ridian, I also take notes in meetings where I don't feel that I have anything relevant to add, and I don't think it's looked at as such an odd thing, as Heather says. I think making notes and doodling is quite regular, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And then we have a question here from Solomon. This one's a tricky one. Actually, you can tell me if I'm anywhere near with this, actually, if you like, Heather, because I would like to guess after what we've done today. So he says, how can you tell the real body language of a person who has a good understanding of body language skills and would likely manipulate his own body language using the skills he or she has acquired? Now, my understanding would be that where that they could probably stop things, tics, if you like, as to, like grabbing their ear or doing whatever else, the eyes seem to be the thing that will maintain the truth, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's right. Obviously, you can expand on it much more than I can.
We're all going to have our various idiosyncrasy that we do with our body language. I still have mine that I use, as are you. But the trick is, how do you use them to your advantage? And how do you use them not to offend others in your communication? And that's the trick about body language. There's no right or wrong in it, but it's how to be conscious that you're not offending others and that what you're communicating with the body language is what you want to communicate.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, great. Well, I think we're out of time now. Yeah. It's exactly past. So I'd just like to say thanks so much to Heather. It's been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed it. I'm so glad a lot of people have got involved in the questions. That's been really interactive, and I hope everybody's enjoyed their answers. Rob asked, how can we get presentation slides for future reference? As I previously mentioned, I will get those out in an email to you as soon as I possibly can. But thank you so much to everybody. It's been a really enjoyable webinar. And we have another coming up next week on understanding financial statements. So you'll be able to get another string to your bow after this body language session. But again, yeah, thanks so much to Heather. And with that, I think I shall be closing the webinar down. So thanks, everybody.